Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in the town hall of Middelharnis, and a special word of welcome to family members of the Engelse Lancaster R5552. That particular plane was flying its 50th mission in World War II on the 20th of December 1944. They were hit by an anti-aircraft fire and were forced to land, or say better, crash in Middelharnis near the Torenstee. And on that spot we will unveil a panel that will bring us back to that date. They were young people who volunteered in the air battle in Europe. Sergeant Leslie Kenson, Flight Sergeant Kenneth B. Rennell, Sergeant Ernst Thomas, Flight Sergeant James W. Thompson, Flight Sergeant Alexander B. Shedden, and Flight Sergeant John F. Moore, and the Flight Sergeant Daniel Brandend. Now, they paid the ultimate price for our freedom, for our liberation. They paid the ultimate price for the liberation of Europe and other parts of the world. They brought back freedom. They brought back growing democracy in our part of the world. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. And the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them. Thank you.
Why did the plane crash? Probably due to anti-aircraft fire. We have a piece of the actual aircraft here in the hall, an escape hatch in the closed situation, so it was no use of the crew, as we know. But if you look at this escape hatch, you can see the damage caused by shrapnel of the grenades, and you can imagine what those guys had to endure. The plane was on fire. You can all see the whole of the shrapnel and the burning spots on the panel. It crashed near the Potterweg. We're going to visit the crash site because we placed the information panel over there. And the last meters of the aircraft, according to the eyewitness, this route between two other farms, and then it crashed just in front of the farm called the Torenstee. This is a part of the crew. We don't know, three of the guys in this photo are not the actual crew that you are the family of. Very typical this time because they were the very first time they flew together. But it was a bit different from how the Royal Air Force combined the crews in those days. Normally when they got together in the big hall and then they formed the crews, but they mixed up. They flew in several other aircraft. So we don't have an actual photo of the 7 guys who lost their lives over here. The 7 guys were buried a few days after they crashed. This was the first great provisionary grave with provisionary stones. If you see in a while when we're on the cemetery, this is still the same. This is what it looks like today. Kept well, because we care for the coming of war graves in the Netherlands. Leslie, for that.
New Zealanders played a huge part in the war effort in Europe, both in the air and on land, and they paid a very heavy price. The aircraft that we remember today was not from that New Zealand squadron, but, as we have heard, one of the crew members, the bomb aimer, Flight Sergeant Alex Shedden, was a New Zealander. At a time like this, almost 70 years after the events of December 1943, we remember not so much the nationalities of that brave crew, British, Canadian, and Australian and New Zealand comrades in arms, as their common humanity It is an honour for me, on behalf of my country, to pay tribute to the sacrifice of those 7 airmen. I would like to conclude by acknowledging the efforts of the Stichting, woe to go, as I would say from the abbreviation, in ensuring that those tragic events are suitably commemorated. I congratulate you and your colleagues on the success of this event, and as I said at the beginning, it's an honour for me to be part of this occasion. Kia ora.
Ladies and gentlemen, there are many reasons that young men and women choose to serve their country in the military. Most often it has nothing to do with recognition. And though most have a strong sense of duty, some just do it for the sense of adventure and the accomplishment of something good. I think that whether we're afraid to die or not, the thought that we will be remembered and that our sacrifices will be appreciated and serve a greater good is something that gives every soldier a bit of peace. Your presence here today, all of you, Dutch, Australian, British, New Zealanders, and myself, Canadian, all in the name of remembrance, is not only a tribute to these men, but a promise that those who are now serving, currently serving, that they will not be forgotten. And that is a tremendous gift that you are to be congratulated for your efforts in giving it. So let us proudly pay tribute to these brave souls of diverse backgrounds who worked together in the cause of freedom. Let us remember their sacrifice, their courage, their sense of duty and honor. We shall not forget. We will remember them.
As chairman of the Royal British Legion Holland branch, I'm honoured to be present here today, along with several of my colleagues, to represent our organisation on this special occasion. Most of us are aware of the annual remembrance services and ceremonies in the UK, and particularly London, in November each year. These events meet the national need to remember and grieve for those who gave their lives for the freedom that we enjoy today. This for me is the significance of today's events and their importance to the families and friends of those whom we remember and honour here.
Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, members of the family that have made their way over here. It's an honour for me and a privilege as an attaché at the British Embassy to be asked to come to an event to represent the United Kingdom. My own great uncle was in the RAF and passed away in the war as a result of a very similar incident to this one. So it does bring back some very personal memories for myself. I want to also be thankful to the organisation and the Dutch people who, in my time here, have always given more effort perhaps than some of the UK's own efforts towards remembrance of UK individuals that unfortunately gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country. So, my words are short, and thank you very much for allowing me to come up and say a few things. So, this is a great event, and we should be proud to be part of it. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on the cemetery at the Hoflaan. This is a closed cemetery, as you were well aware of.
As you can see, the 7 stones of the 7 airmen are at the back of us, turned around, but that's the way they put them back then. I'm very pleased that if you see those stones, they look much cleaner and smarter and better than the other stones over here. So that's a sign that we take good care of the stones of the airmen that gave their life for our freedom. Zij vlogen met een Lancaster toestel, wat je een veteraan zou kunnen noemen. Ditzelfde toestel, wat daar is neergestort, was op zijn 50ste missie. Het lot had hij al een paar keer getart. Normaal gesproken hadden die jongens in die tijd een kans van 7, 8 keer missies te vliegen en dan had je eigenlijk je geluk gehad. Zo laag was de overlevingskans die jongens destijds hadden. En als ik u vertel dat er 125.000 bemanningsleden bij Bommencommand hebben gevlogen, waarvan er 55.000 het leven hebben gelaten in de strijd tegen Nazi-Duitsland, is dat op één na het hoogste verliescijfer wat ooit in de militaire macht is opgetreden. Alleen de Duitse U-boten hadden nog een groter verliescijfer. Voor de Engelsen in ieder geval het allerhoogste verliescijfer, Bommencommand. En dat waren allemaal vrijwilligers. Ze gingen vrijwillig dienst nemen, ze gingen vrijwillig de opleiding aan en ze kropen vrijwillig in die toestellen. Toestellen die van binnen erg benauwd waren, die volgeladen waren met high explosive bommen, brandbommen, vele tonnen, zeker de Lancaster die tot een bom van 10 ton wel eens kon meenemen. En die ging Duitsland in de donkere nacht. Tijdens die missies vlogen er altijd een paar tegen elkaar, want je had natuurlijk geen uitgebreide verlichting. En dat was ook heel gevaarlijk uiteraard om op die manier richting Duitsland te gaan, want de Duitse troepen die gooiden alles in de strijd om zoveel mogelijk toestellen neer te halen. Tijdens deze missie zijn ook 41 toestellen van de 690 niet teruggekeerd op de basis, waaronder dus de Lancaster met het nummer R5552. Zijn 50ste missie, maar voor de bemanning die hier begraven ligt, was het hun eerste missie. Het was niet hun eerste missie voor individueel, maar voor als bemanning bij elkaar was het hun allereerste missie en dus ook hun laatste missie. De Lancaster die was op een missie naar Frankfurt. Dat was een afleidingsmissie van de Royal Air Force. Want in de maanden toen dit toestel zijn aanvallen uitvoerde, was vooral Berlijn het doelwit. De stad waar Rijksmarschal Göring ooit een keer had gezegd, als er bommen op Berlijn vallen, dan mogen ze mij een lelijke Duitse naam noemen. Nou, dat kwam dus uit. Het toestel is waarschijnlijk geraakt door luchtafweergeschut, ergens bij Schouwen of Hoek van Holland, dat kunnen we niet helemaal nagaan. Het is in brand geschoten, het heeft nog boven Sommelsdijk gecirkeld, daar hebben we ook ooggetuigen van. Het is daarna richting Middelharnis vertrokken, daar heeft het ook nog gecirkeld. In brand. Ze hebben de bommen daar gelost, want ze waren dus op weg naar Duitsland, dus alle lading was nog aan boord. We hebben er ook verhalen van, de boerderij van Jaap Slis, waar nu een andere familie in woont. Daar was door de klap van de explosie van die bom, daar vloog de rook terug de kachel in. Dus de mensen zaten in de keuken, die kregen al de zwarte roet en de gloeiende sintels om hun oren. Er zit ook nog een stuk van de bom in de gevel. En ze hebben daar ook al hun brandbommen gelost. En die vinden ze regelmatig op dit moment nog de landbouwers in de buurt als ze de sloot aan het schoonmaken zijn of anderszins. Ook hebben we laatst ook nog munitie gevonden. Het toestel heeft geen hoogte meer kunnen winnen, ondanks dat ze de lading hebben gelost en is in de drinkput bij boerderij de Torenstee gevallen. Die kun je op dit moment niet meer zien. En je kan ook de schuur niet meer zien, want er brak namelijk een vleugel van het toestel af. En die zat natuurlijk nog vol met brandstof. Die vloog ook in brand, die schuur is verbrand, vee is verbrand. En de mensen hebben het woonhuis net kunnen behouden. En dan een aantal uren later wordt gekeken naar de wrakstukken van een Lancaster. En op dat moment worden de 6 ontzielde lichamen van 6 bemanningsleden gevonden. De 7e een paar dagen later. Ze zijn een paar dagen later ook hier ter aarde besteld. Dus hier achter mij liggen die 7 jongens al sinds december 1943 begraven. I'd now like to ask the mayor of the municipality, meneer Zevenbergen, to say a few words to the local people.
You were right. This is a closed cemetery, but it is not a silent cemetery. We come here every year on the 4th of May, and it's a special cemetery because when you enter, you see a plaque with the name of the Jewish citizens of the whole island, Goeree-Overflakkee, who fought a battle which never could be won. They were, amongst us, real victims of tyranny, and we should not forget them. And neither will we forget those 7 crew members of the Lancaster who gave their lives in order to be able to commemorate even today. Youngsters are amongst those at my right, your left hand side. It's that generation that should keep the light burning, that should keep the candle burning. And then we won't forget, because every life is something like a candle in the wind. Thank you so much.
Honoured guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to speak the following words on behalf of my wife, Erica, daughter of Eric, the brother of Kenneth Reynolds, the pilot of Lancaster R5552. My deep felt thanks to Dennis Norton-Boone, Cleese Stoutsdijk, and the team of Woe to Go, the Westerbeck family, and the people of Middelharnis for the diligent, hard, and wonderful work it has taken to bring us all to this unforgettable moment. A truly wonderful gift. A ceremony that has brought so many people together to share the memory, sorrow, and loss of our dear brave loved ones who died on the night of the 20th of December 1943. The war took Uncle Kenneth and his brother Eric, my father, who was a navigator of a Catalina aircraft shot down in the Bay of Biscay in 1945. Both died before I ever really knew them, and the grief is still with me to this day. This ceremony means so much to me and my family, and I know that my mother and grandmother would have been so proud and grateful. My thanks and love, and God bless you all, Erica.
Kenneth Reynolds was our mum's much-loved cousin and dear friend. He was 3 years older than her, and they were just like brother and sister. They grew up in the years before the war, and Mum has many lasting memories of the happy times and holidays they shared along with Ken's older brother Eric. For Mum, it was just like having 2 big brothers. Mum can still remember the terrible sadness she felt when, at the age of 18, she learnt of Ken's death. Kenneth died in the service of his country, and it is with love and pride that she will always remember him. My sister and I feel honoured to be here today to represent our mother, and we all feel that a debt of gratitude is owed to the kind people of Middelharnis, who for so many years have kept alive the memory of Ken and his crew.
Distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen, who was Leslie? Thus, most of what we know about him comes from a few anecdotes and his own letters to his parents. Leslie was well liked. He played the organ in church, as did his brothers, and at the age of 16. And then he started to train as an architect before applying to the RAF. I'll now read some extracts from the last letter he wrote to his parents on the night of Wednesday, the 15th of December. Dear Mum and Dad, well, here I am at last with my new address, as you will see by the above. I arrived okay back at Lindholm on Monday. The train arrived in Doncaster at 7:30 p.m. and I managed to get a seat all the way down. I haven't been told what crew I am joining yet, so of course I'm feeling a bit lonely here in the mess, not knowing anyone. However, I suppose I'll meet the new crew tomorrow, and I'll probably meet 1 or 2 other chaps too, who were OTU and con unit with me. We'll see tomorrow anyway. Please forgive me, Mum, for being rather abrupt when I left you on Monday morning. I couldn't realise that my leave was over so quickly, and when I did realise it that Monday morning, when everything was packed, well, I was really annoyed at myself for having to go so soon. I am very sorry, and I wish now I hadn't spoken so sharply to you. I hope you are feeling better now, Mum, and that you have completely got rid of that cold. Cheerio for now, and take good care of yourselves, won't you? God bless you both, keep you safe. Fondest love, Leslie. His last letter, and 5 days later Leslie died at the age of 21 when his plane crashed. Had he lived, he might have become the architect involved in future regeneration. But surely he would have made a wonderful uncle. Thank you.
My sister and I have come from Australia to be here today, and we're very proud and very honoured that we could be here for the ceremony and the work that has gone into it. I'm very proud that the people of Middelharnis have welcomed us all here and looked after our Uncle Johnny for so many years. I'd like to read a poem that was written by my uncle, Father Brian Moore, who is John Francis Moore's youngest brother. It's called In Memoriam. I'm sorry I forgot you said, and I, unremembered, ceased to be. You are not forgotten. Today we honour you and remember you with love and gratitude and with sorrow. We are humbled by your sacrifice. Though you are a long way from home, cradled in this now peaceful land and cared for by this community, you live on through your deeds and in our memories.
I never knew my Uncle Jim, as he died several years before I was born, and I know very little about him. With the death of my mother 2 years ago, Jim has finally passed from living memory into history. I can't imagine any tour company organising a tour to visit 7 graves of the crew of one Lancaster bomber on an island in the middle of the river of the Rhine-Maas Delta. These graves are special only to the families of the men who died and to the inhabitants of this small town near where they died. I'm sure I cannot be the only person here who visits graveyards and likes to walk round reading some of the stones. I always feel that for a few seconds I'm breathing a tiny drop of life back into someone long gone and forgotten. Can I therefore ask the people of Middelharnis here today, on behalf of myself and the other families, to visit these graves occasionally and say, hello, there's no need to make a special thing of it. You could be in the cemetery visiting a grave of your own, or you might simply be passing by. There are only 7 graves, so it will only take a minute or 2 of your time, and we would all be very grateful. Thank you very much.
As Kay has said, it is difficult to say too much about these people because we just don't know. What we do know, though, is Sergeant Toms, the flight engineer, came from England, and he came from Woodford Bridge in Essex. He was married, we know that, and he lived with his wife in Wanstead in London. And unfortunately, that's all we know, other than the fact he is here. Sergeant Daniel Bernard, he was the tail gunner. He came from Canada. And in fact, he came from the town of Bellevue in Manitoba. In August 23, he was born. Alex Shedden, from New Zealand, on the other hand, we know quite a lot about. A book was written by his brother Jim. Now, they were both the sons of Angus and Margaret Shedden, and they came from Waymate in Canterbury on the South Island. The last time he had been home to see his family, his last words to his mother were, "Jim comes back home, but I do not." His mother said, "His hands were cold when he said goodbye and spoke those words. I knew that I would never see my son again." Finally, after training, Alex was posted to 166 Squadron at Kilmington, and his first operational flight was on the 20th of December 1943. He never made the target, of course, and he now lies here. So, 3 men, all very different, and probably all very typical of the crews who flew with Bomber Command in 1943. At that stage, around 25% of all the personnel were from overseas. It is well recognised that the war would not have been won without Bomber Command, and Bomber Command would not have worked without the raw courage and sacrifice of the 55,573 who gave their lives, almost half of those who served. May they all rest in peace. part of our ceremony, I would like to ask the family to come forward to unveil the information panel on the crash that occurred here on 20 December 1943. So please come and join us. 3.